So it's early in the morning. I mean, not terribly early. I'm not a morning person. Early enough that still my first cup of coffee though. And it's gonna be a big weekend. I'm sure I'll get some little things done, but I don't really have like a chunk of garden time. So I thought, since this was what I was sort of using my small bits of time for today, we've got a lot of crazy stuff happening in our house right now, that I would sort of share this with you guys. These obviously are my roses. Roses were my very first garden love. These particular bushes have been moved from house to house. I have cried over them and tended to them for some of them for 12 or 13 years. This beautiful light pink one, who is always my most prolific, was a gift when my daughter was born. And it is a big, gorgeous bush, and it is really thorny. And it reminds me so much of her, and I laugh every time I cut roses off of it. But once or twice a year, when she's really in full bloom and there's just an excess of flowers, I make rose water. Now, I cut off of her all year long, all of them, but she's the happiest and most pruned right now. A few of them I'm having to be a little bit more gentle with because they're only on their second season since our move. So by the end of this year, they should really be kicking it like they were at our old house. But I intentionally trim her down early in the season when the blooms start to come out so that I get long stem roses off of her. I have a few tall vases, and long stem roses are just one of those things, like, it breaks my heart when my sweet husband spends money on those. I've always told him, like, please don't give me plants that are gonna die in just a few days. I would rather have something with roots and not a single flower. But that doesn't change how beautiful they are. I think, you know, they just sing to most people's hearts, but part of that is because of the work that goes into making them long stem roses. You have to trim it down to one single bud early in the budding process, and make sure it's the one in the center of the stem so that it continues that long, lean line. And then there's a lot of waiting. And then when you cut them all off, the poor bush is bald. So when you're not necessarily trimming them out, you'll have to excuse the car noise. I do live on a busy street. When you're not trimming them out to be long stem roses, you know, you can go in and snip the ones that are blooming and leave the little buds. And so it's a little bit more of a constant bloom. When you trim them down specifically for this purpose, you tend to get waves of cuttings. So I have cut long stem roses last week. This is the big cut this week. I have enough blooms that it looks like I'll get one more good wave off of her, and then we'll have to wait for her to go through another budding cycle. I should get another 1 or 2 budding cycles this season. With this elongated spring, I'm hoping for 2. The weather's been so weird, but my broccolis and peas are so excited about it. I am gonna do my first harvest of peas today, so I'll try to sneak that in somewhere. But right now we're doing rose water. So I will keep enough of these long stems to fill the vases in the house. 2 or 3 vases, just because I only get to do this once or twice a year, and they will look like this in the vases for about a week. I probably won't mix any other flowers in. I do have some phlox that smells amazing. and a few other things that are blooming right now. So if I put together a bouquet for one of my girlfriends or something, I'll add a little bit in. But me personally, in the house, it just feels really luxurious to have vases full of nothing but roses. And it'll only happen this one time this year because I'm not paying for them. But anyway, in waiting for them to hit this and waiting for the weekend, because while I'm at work, I just don't have the time for this. A few of those flowers have gotten... She sounds vicious. A few of those flowers have gotten fully bloomed, and they looked beautiful on the bush, and I hope everyone who drove by... Delilah. No. Come on. Come, sit. Quiet. Thank you. So, I hope everyone that drove by got to really enjoy them, but now it's time for me to enjoy them. And Delilah. So the ones that are so bloomed that they're only gonna live today in a vase, it seems like a lot of work to me to like strip the leaves and put them in a vase and then have to clean up all of the petals all over the tables tomorrow. So I make rose water out of those petals. The first thing to do is to just cut the whole head off. I use this pot, not because it's pretty and has flowers on it, but that is a bonus, but because you're gonna need to be able to fit another bowl inside. And the bottom of this one is just the perfect size for a little tiny cone-shaped mixing bowl that I have that seems to work perfect for me. So any 2 bowls that you can find that'll work. If you don't want to shed your roses into your big pot, you can just do it in a different bowl and then move them into the one that you're gonna use. So you're gonna take a full head. I obviously snipped it off right here at the base just so that I didn't have to deal with the thorns during this part. And this is kind of the sad part. Take all of the petals off. Right here at the base of the stem. Now you don't want any of that interior because we're not trying to get the pollen. We just want the petals. So what I'm gonna do is go through this whole basket of extra large heads, and this white bush in particular is my favorite one to do this with, just because her buds are so big. It requires a lot less flowers. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're just gonna sit and we're gonna tear all of these off for a little bit. All right, so obviously in my kitchen, forgive it, it is definitely the next project. So we've brought in this pot of rose petals, and this I'm putting in the center, and I have covered the outside edges with roses. I can't tell you exactly what size this pot is because it's one of my first handmade pieces, and I have no idea what size that is, but small enough to fit down into my bigger pot. So whatever set you have that'll work. It's similar to double boiling, but obviously you don't want as tight of a seal, because what we're going to do is we're going to pour water to cover these rose petals. Now, I don't have distilled water. I just pre-boil my water. So, but we have a well and it feels natural to me. A lot of things say to use distilled water. So if you feel better using distilled water, by all means do so. I think part of that is to keep the rose water from like fermenting and going bad, but I go through mine pretty quickly. So we're gonna take the pot and we're just gonna cover the petals. So I'm trying not to over pour, because I don't want to dilute my rose water. However, it is going to be sort of a distillation process. So as it boils, it's going to go to the lid and then slowly drip back down from the lid. Oh, there's a tiny person behind me.
Mom.
All right, guys. It's the next day. There was a lot happening in my house yesterday. I did finish the rose water, but recording that with everything else that was with everything else that was going on was a little bit too much for me to manage. So I'm gonna walk you through it. We covered the rose petals with water, brought that to a nice simmer, covered it with the lid, simmered it for 45 minutes ish. There were a lot of kids in my house and I walked away. I can't swear that that was the right amount of time, but we did. And then I just turned off and let it cool. I waited until late last night after I got everybody to bed before I actually siphoned it into the jar. Siphon? Probably not the appropriate word there, but you know what I mean. So there's not going to be enough caffeine to get through today. My rose water is this like yellow tinged color. A lot of recipes and things that you see online mention that it is a pink shade. I feel like it's probably pretty obvious, but you have to start with pink or red colored roses to get that shade. But just in case, I have white roses and some very, very light baby pink. They're barely a pink. And that was what I used to make this. When I use my hot pink roses, I can get a little bit of a rosy tinge to it, but my most prolific bush is white, and so mine is always this slightly yellow shade. It smells heavenly. It is the most moisturizing thing that I have found to use. I do use it on my face for toner, all of that stuff. I pour it in the bath. I only get about 2 batches of this a year, and these 4 pints will get me through. Now, I will store this in the refrigerator. I feel like it gives it a longer shelf life. And then I'll pull it out to mix small batches of my toner and all of that stuff. So if you have a large and prolific rose bush, I encourage you to test out this recipe. Now the caveat to that is it has to be an organic grown rose bush. You do not want a rose bush that you're putting a bunch of chemicals on and pesticides on, because nobody wants to put that on their face and skin and in their body that way. So if you organically grow your roses, or you know someone who does, who will let you come and cut some heads, this is going to be your new favorite thing. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Happy growing.